As we head into the regular season for the 2024 season in the NFL, I have a couple of questions when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think there's 5 different things that we need to keep in mind here, especially when it comes to how good this team can be and really just the biggest questions surrounding this team. And I think that despite their talent, there's going to be some bumps in the road. It's the NFL season. Things happen, right? Just is what it is. But as far as the list of questions go, I think there's a couple of things we need to consider. Number one, how good is this offense going to be, and are they set really? Like we saw in multiple things last year where the defense was what it was, like it's a good defense, but the offense just couldn't string it together when it needed it most, right? Like this offense almost at times seemed completely inept. And I do think that with what we saw in the preseason, I do think this offense is going to be better in training camp. I think that this offense is going to take a huge leap forward. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a big part of that. But how good is this offense going to be, and do we finally have our things together? Because we got the weapons. Jason Kelce, that's a big-time loss for your offensive line. We'll get into that in a second. But overall, how good is this offense going to be, and are we actually going to be in a position where we can get the job done? That's what it comes down to. Number 2, Saquon's involvement in this thing, because Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback, but he can also spread the ball around when he needs to, right? Like, what is Saquon Barkley's what is his production going to be, and how big of a factor is he going to be in this offense? Like, yes, there is the read option side of things. Saquon Barkley is built to run between the tackles. He can also bounce it outside. He's an all-around threat running back, right? And Saquon, I do think that he's going to have a huge time factor in the pass game as well. I think that with what he can do just in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield, I think it provides you with yet another wrinkle to this offense that already features A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and now Jahan Dotson. But I do think that there's another big question there is, how much of a factor is Saquon Barkley going to be specifically in the running game? Because let's not forget, he's one of the best backs in the NFL. And I don't think that's even that much of a debate at this point, because when given the ball and put it in his hands, he's going to take over. I don't think anybody doubts that. So how big is his role in this going to be? And number 3 is, how are injuries going to affect this team? You got James Bradbury out right now because a lower leg issue and everything, and probably going to be out for at least the first 4 games. You got Cindy Brown out in the secondary, and Quinyon Mitchell stepped up. You drafted both Mitchell and Cooper DeJean up out of Iowa. Keely Ringo, I think, is going to get his shot to do some things, and Eli Ricks and Isaiah Rodgers are going to be some names to watch as well. But how are injuries going to affect this team? Aeneas Smith is a guy I'm going to be watching. Hopefully when he gets back, everything's good to go. Because it's not like you don't have talent, but specifically, how are injuries going to affect the secondary of this team? Because, yeah, you drafted a couple of guys, but there's no guarantee that they're going to work out like they did in the past. And I do think that a big question you have to have is, how are Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean going to be able to step up right away? Injuries play a big time role. How is the depth on this team? Maybe that's a bigger, question on how this whole thing works out. The offensive line, Jason Kelce is a big time loss. You got Cam Jurgens now running in to start at center, even though he played right guard last year. Now you got Mekhi Becton and Tyler Steen, Darian Kennard, Fred Johnson, Trevor Keegan, All these guys are clamoring now for snaps, and it's like, is this going to work? Are we actually going to have an offensive line for the Eagles that's been as good as it was in the past? Lane Johnson's still that guy. Jordan Mailata is an absolute stud. But in the middle of it, let's face it, Jason Kelce was the he was the straw that stirred the drink here. He really was. And can Cam Jurgens step in from playing right guard for most of the season? I think it did him some good, getting him some experience and learning with Kelce and everything. But I do think that that's going to be a big question is kind of learning, where this offensive line. And then I think number 5 and finally is the fact that, this defense is good, but, how is this defensive line going to stack up? Because you've got a lot of capital spent into this thing, including a couple of first round picks in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. I do think that, this defensive line needs to set the tone, because Jordan Davis needs to take up double teams. Jalen Carter needs to get after the quarterback. Milton Williams and Bryce Huff, they need to get after it as well. And, it really does set it back from the rest of it, because Zach Bond, Devin White in the middle, not even really worried about it. Josh Sweat's going to bring it from the edge. I'm also really excited to see about Jeremiah Trotter, Nakobe Dean, and Nolan Smith. Those are 3 guys. They're going to get some snaps and do some different things. But, it starts in the trenches. It really does for the Eagles, and it has for years now. And that's how they've won a lot of games, is they've won the games in the trenches. And then you go to the secondary, right? We covered it. The secondary, as far as staying healthy, are guys going to be able to step up on the defensive and the depth pieces of this thing? That's really what it comes down to. You got to win games in the trenches. And, I think from just top to bottom, we talked about the fact of Jalen Hurts and everything he's going to have to do with Saquon Barkley. The offensive line needs to play well, and they need to win games in the trenches. That's ultimately what it comes down to. But let us know what you guys think. Did we miss any questions that you guys might have about this team? Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below. and we'll see you on the next video.